Hey, 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 welcome. I am super excited that you are here. For those that don't know me, my name is Connie Rivera, and I am a financial strategist. But I'm not just a financial strategist, I'm here to really help you create a financial future that you can absolutely live into. So you really get an opportunity to really create what it looks like to expand whatever you want your life to look like. And my commitment is to help you discover that. And if there's anything that I can do to support and help you with that, I'm here for it. So today we have a special guest. We have a special guest. I'm so excited. So, I have a tradition. I have business besties and I share my business besties. Because I'm not a gatekeeper. So if I'm bringing someone to you, it's because I know, like, and trust them, and I absolutely respect them. And this particular person, I know for a fact, like, this woman has been such a light in my life. She not only is she a mother, she's a mother to an adult child. So when you see her, don't judge her because she looks young, but she has an adult son. She'll probably talk a little bit more about it, what it's like parenting an adult son, what that looks like, because that's new for me too, because my child is 19. She a mother, wife, amazing sister, and an amazing, amazing financial partner with so many people, just really the bringing them the truth of what it looks like to really create a financial future that they can live into that matches their lifestyle and what matters to them. So without further ado, I want to present to you my business bestie, your new business bestie, Roxanne Badilla.
Hi, Connie. I'm your bestie. Oh my goodness. I love that that's my title. I want to be your bestie always. So thank you. Thank you for those kind words. I appreciate it.
You always bring it real. You always bring it real, and you bring it fully, authentically, and with the fullness of the nurture and the femininity. So you're my girl.
Thank you. You're mine as well. I have Connie's very humble and hopefully by this episode you'll get the sense of her really wanting to be here to help you 10x whatever industry you're in, right? I think we all are just financial strategists and that is the industry where we have found a commonality, but I think what you're doing just highlights so many different people coming from so many different backgrounds with almost a common thread, but there's differences in what we do. And so I'm so grateful that and honored that you asked me to talk to you today.
Yes, thank you so much for accepting the invitation. So RP Financial, right? RP Financial is your financial organization. And inside of RP Financial is one of my favorite brands inside of RP Financial. We're not going to go without not talking about it, which is this smiling entrepreneur. Do we
Yes.
know why? We know why, people.
Right, right. It's because I frown all the time. No, I right. No, so it's so funny. My background is not finances. It's not a place I came from. I was very heavily rooted in healthcare, community health, advocacy work, public health research. That was where I was coming from for many years. That's what I got my master's in, my bachelor's in. And just by having a conversation, which I think is how a lot of people get started is conversations. So if you're not having conversations, have conversations with people. But I was very blessed that I had a former student at a high school I worked at just ask me a simple question if I had life insurance. And me being very naive to the industry, I said what most people say, and I still hear now is yes, they have it at work. And he said, well, let's talk, let's have a conversation. And from that conversation and just an experience my husband had at his job, where he almost like died. I mean, literally, it was just someone not paying attention to some equipment that could have completely crushed him. He said, we need insurance because all I could think of in that moment was I was going to leave my wife and kids. And were we ready and did we have things? And so from that conversation, it metamorphed into this beautiful industry. I participated with a company that taught me the industry, presented the industry to me. And so, af having left that company, it was really a time of figuring out my own voice, right? Because now I'm in this independent space where I'm not necessarily tied to a company. And so, as you can tell, I smile. I smile when I'm sad. I'm smiling when I'm happy. I have the joy of the Lord, is what I call it. And so that's how the Smiling Entrepreneur was birthed. It was really about saying, I enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy servicing, and I want you to feel happy about your finances too. And if you've ever sat across someone who has, that resting face, we won't say the whole word, but you can fill in the blanks. You don't want to talk to that person about your money. You're like, man, do you got money? You seem upset. Like, what's going on? So it was really birthed out of that. And so anybody that's had a business knows that you evolve. I mean, if you're really learning and professionally developing and not just the business aspect, but the branding aspect. I had a conversation with, my mother who passed away this January, but prior to that, she said, I love that that's you, but I just don't know what that means. I don't know what do you do, right? And so mothers in their infinite wisdom, right? I'm like, Mom, you're right. You're right, right? And so that's how RP Financial was birthed. It was really saying that I still want you to not just feel happy about your finances, but I want you to feel empowered about them. And that really is what the brand and the business is. And so I'm always the smiling entrepreneur. That's who I am as an individual. But the agents, I'm based in Chicago, Illinois. I have 13 different states that we service, and there's always getting more added every day. But that's really what the name is. So that was kind of the evolution of where we're at today.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that. I'm curious. So you mentioned a couple of things, and I want to kind of like pull that out a little bit. So you're in Chicago,
I am.
Chicago, Illinois. And so a former high school student?
Yeah, it's so crazy, right? Again, we all evolve, right? We all evolve. And so this individual who is very near and dear to my heart, he would be the person that would come into, I worked in a school-based health center, and he would come in and, cut, and I'd be like, you need to go to class, but I'm very much about maintaining my relationships. So anybody that was a former student of mine, I'm still in contact with them today, whether it be through Facebook or text message I might send, because I genuinely care about the people that I interact with on any level. And so, we happen to maintain that relationship. And yeah, he mentioned that and really showed me the way in which these products are they're strategies. These are strategies. These are not just, hey, pay this and your family will be okay if you pass away, which is a function of it. But being able to really grow and understand and read and tease back, right, those layers of what these strategies really do. And for people who don't commonly, again, get this information, I was sold. And I was more impressed that he that he was doing it. I was like, I want to know who's teaching you, show me. And so that was how this path was. And I'll forever be grateful for that because it has um changed my life in just so many ways.
That is so beautiful. And just to be humble enough to hear from a student, right? And to hear that's what I appreciate about you the most.
Yeah,
So yeah. So I'm curious. So and I'm sorry for the loss of your mom. I know that
thank
was
you.
you mentioned that she passed away in January, and I know how close you were to your mom. And I was there a little bit. I was around a little bit for a couple of things that you went through with your mom, and I know that that was tough. And I know that one thing that your mom did was she made sure to take care of you and your sister um, and create a legacy of sorts for even her grandkids. Can you tell me more about that? Are you open to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. She, we talk about love languages. There's a book that talks about certain love languages, right? And I don't know if this is a love language, but my mom's was always security, right? She herself was very much a giver. And if you knew my mom was to love my mom, and my mom loved you, right? And she was very much invested about making sure that you were financially okay, and this is a single mom who raised two girls and was able to buy her home and pay off, do all these things, right? Me and my sister were never without. And so, she being a young mom, two kids, buys this home, someone has a conversation with her about getting life insurance because you just put almost everything you had into this home and this down payment. So let's just make sure if something happens to you before these girls, are adults, that at least the house is taken care of. Once that happens, and we grow up, thank goodness it didn't happen when we were younger. And she got diagnosed with terminal cancer in September and passed away in January. And so she had kept that policy just because for her it was like, I'm already contributing to it. It's not, it's nothing. It's fine. I still have the home, right? I still need to make sure that was okay. And so that was really a love language for me and my sister. In that, we both are adults. We're both married. We both have our own homes and our own families. But it was something that my mom left for so many different reasons. I mean, people don't get that it's not just covering burial. Like, yes, that's important because that's a big expense. My mother had a 1-day viewing and she was cremated, and that still was $9,000. And people today don't even have $1,000 in savings, let alone if you have something catastrophic like that happen to a breadwinner, let's say, right now you're one income less and you don't have the savings. And, as much as we can talk about the funeral homes, there's still a business, right? Like there's still staff that has to take care of the body and the service and all that stuff. So, if you think, okay, well, just, cremate me will be okay. I mean, inflation affects funeral homes too, right? So even in that scenario, like that still was almost $10,000. And so it's not just that. It's being able to grieve my mother, who we took care of for 4 months. If you've ever had to take care of any parent, it's not just physically draining, but it's mentally draining because you're almost mourning as you're watching this person you love deteriorate, this vibrant, intelligent person. So to think that once she goes, then it's just back to normal, it's not. And so that love language of having that established allowed us a little bit of time to grieve, right? To not have to think, I need to go back to work because, my 3 days of grievance is, bereavement is over, or I don't want to use all of my PTO because I only probably get 2 weeks. Now, I will say I'm very blessed, that I run my own business, but people still depend on me, right? Even I can't just say, oh, I'm going to check out, right? So I have to make sure the finances are in order. My sister, does have a employment with an employer, right? So it made some things for her a little bit difficult. She has a younger child, so the ability to just not do anything was only able because we had that resource that my mother had in that policy, and her being able to leave that for my children, right, is already putting them in a financial place that they wouldn't have been. Now, I say this all the time. I would give all of that back in a heartbeat for my mother. In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. I would rather have I would rather have negative 10,000 in the bank to have my mother. That wasn't the path for us. That wasn't what God had planned, right? But it allowed us to be able to do that. And I'm still mourning, right? Anybody that's had a significant loss, it doesn't end. But in that moment, it allowed us to just breathe and allowed us to do things that we would not have been able to do. And so when I'm sitting with a client, this is not theoretical. I'm not saying, I'm telling you it's doing this because I think it will. I'm a living example of what it does. I have lived it. I am not just someone that strategizes with you. I am a recipient of it. So I'm not just talking on my neck. Like for lack of a better word, like I'm not just I know what it can do. And so I'm so passionate about that because I know what that feels like, especially, you know, people who have lost children. I can't even imagine. I know in the grand scheme of life, my mom was supposed to go first, you know, sooner than I would have liked, but I know that's what it was. And I think about people who've lost children. My sister lost her son, right? And I can't imagine, and he had a policy, so I know that things in terms of the finances were covered, right? But you just think of the after, so I think of people who don't have those resources, and you know, I feel such sadness because you're almost like forced to just go back and live your life, like just start living your life, and so that was her forever love language to us. And so the best way I can honor her is that make sure that other individuals can provide that same resource and support to their families in their time of need.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Roxanne. Oh,
Don't cry. I got this makeup girl. Okay, my right now my eyes got no bags. They're flawless. It's not hard, but it's hard, right? Like
yeah,
if you're a believer in the way I am, my mom's in such a better place than I am myself right now. But the worldly flesh of me, just wants to hear her voice and hear her yell at me, or hear me give her, the guidance, right? And the things. And so I just think of what are the ways in which I honor her. And so that is really having these conversations with my children about their finances, making sure they understand how these things work. It's making sure that families that I talk to, individuals, whether you're 21 and just starting the workforce or you're 58 and about to retire, that we really have a plan and tools and the resources equipped for the strategies that are going to help your family, right? Some of it is while we're living, right? Because we know that certain strategies allow you to access these benefits in the event, like with my mother who had terminal. Now, obviously, when she got her policy, which was way back when, that wasn't a thing, at least for the company she was with. But I always think about, and if we did, maybe my sister could have not stopped working, or we could have hired someone to stay with the baby, because, if you've ever had a 1-year-old or 2-year-old, it's hard, right? And I know my sister would have liked to have been able to support that piece more, just taking the, I mean, there's just so many things, right, that I think about. And so that is what I know that I have to do, right? I can't be, like you say, right? I can't be the gatekeeper of this. What you do
mm,
with the information though is on you, right? Like I want to be a vessel of education and information and resources to plan with you and strategize. At the end of the day, what you choose to do is what you choose to do. But I know for a fact that I was called to do this. I know that God called me to educate people in things that they didn't know about for whatever reason, and to help those along the path. And if I can't, then I'm going to find you somebody, right? Because I'm not going to be like I'm the end all be all, but we just I love this network that we're in because there's so many people that do so many different things that I can lean on others to say, okay, I have this client, this is what they want. I'm not really sure if that's so. Are there ways that we can connect and collaborate? And I love collaborating with people. So for sure.
I love that. That I absolutely know that it's true. You love collaborating with people, yes, and
I
you like
do.
partnering, creating. And one thing that you do when you do collaborate with people is that you really you give them their flowers so that, I mean, whoever that they come along with, they know that they are also the professional. So I appreciate that about you. So you talked a lot about how you like to help families. And one thing that you are known for, because we know each other because we have a shared secrets. We have a secret back office that we that we both participate in the sense of like this is where we hold our contracts as financial professionals, but we not only do we hold our contracts here, but this is where we've chosen to create community, where we train, where we uplift and train other professionals as well. And that's really committed to an independent aspect, right? So I when I started in the industry, it it was more of an MLM style that I was in at that organization. And it was like you kind of had to ask for permission to run your business. And if you didn't follow the process of what the leadership said, that you were a rogue. And if you were a rogue agent, no one would talk to you, right? Or no one would invite you to their office party, or you wouldn't be allowed to go to another agent's. It was a hot mess. It was crazy. But here, just at this organization, it's just like the freedom, the collaboration, like how you have collaborated, and just the coming together. So there is no shortage of expertise because when we bring all these years together, I'm telling you, we've got centuries, real conversation, centuries. And I'm proud of that. And I appreciate that. What, so I want to know, so at this organization, right? One of the things that you're known for is your streaks. So Roxanne likes to have her streaks. So when she runs a play, she's just like, okay, I'm gonna do this however many long this time. The insurance industry, or the financial strategy industry is not easy and it's not for the weak, period. Um, it it's definitely not for the weak. So especially if you're brand new, you're just like, oh, friends and family until you join this club. It's called the No Friends Left Club. It's the Financial Strategist NFL Club, and then nobody wants to talk to you no more because you spent them out. But you have done something where you have created where you're creating business every single week. You're submitting business and you don't let a week rest where you're not submitting some type of business, which a lot of agents, I'm sorry, I have been a lot of agents that maybe have done 4 policies in their 5 year career or have only done 4 policies in a year, right? Or their business is only based on whatever the people that they've recruited or brought into the business, and then feeding off of their friends and family. But you don't do that at all. What are some of the strategies that you do that have had you be on that streak where you're constantly submitting business?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely will tell you that it was a very interesting ride. So as a part of this agent resource organization, right? That's what I like to think of it. It is really an agent resource, right? The back office. And so part of those things you talked about was times where we can get together and really have the CEO of the company look at our metrics, right? So one, I would definitely say if you're not uh, tracking your business, you have to track. I don't care if you just started. I don't care if you just got licensed. It's a habit, right? And it's not about tracking it when you start producing. It's about building that habit so you can see how long does it even take you to start sitting with people, right? Or calling people. Those are metrics you're still doing even if you haven't submitted. So definitely tell someone even from the newest agent, or maybe I know seasoned people who still maybe don't do it or are inconsistent about doing it is like really tracking it. And I mean, looking at every aspect from any social media post you make to the number of dials you're making, how many people you're connecting with, and from connecting, were you able to set some kind of appointment? Are you going to networking meetings from those? So all these different metrics, right, the CEO looks at, and he's then able to decipher, okay, well, I see you're doing this, what times of the day are you calling, right? So we're having those conversations, and he said to me, I noticed that you've submitted each week that we have been doing this. And now we're about like, I want to say 5 or 6 weeks in. And he mentioned to me about an individual who, and I can't remember now the organization, but he submitted a piece of business every week, no matter what, right? If he wasn't looking at the size of what that was, he was looking at just making sure that he was able to protect or service or help somebody that week. And when he framed it like that, I really said, okay, I'm going to do that, right? I took that task and that challenge to heart. And so what I made sure to do is my business is really set up as a warm market. So meaning these are either individuals who I know either through friends or family, friends of friends, co-workers, things like that. And so already having that kind of book of business, it's really about getting good about how you ask for the referrals and how you follow up with the referrals. Because if you did right by that one client, then they won't have a problem opening up other individuals to you who they feel needs that education, right? Because I always lead with education. So if I sat with you and you really got that value from me, that you understand how this works in the larger scheme of your goals for your future, you're gonna want me to sit with your tia. You're gonna want me to sit with your friend. You're gonna want me to sit with your older son, right? I've had lots of parents that are like, you need to talk to my kid because he just got a really good job and I feel like he's going to squander his check, right? So at least teach him how to save some of that, right? And so it's not just getting those referrals, but like actively following up with them, right? Because I know in the very beginning, I would get referrals and maybe not be as quick or as diligent in calling them, right? So that really set off a chain where I was able to submit a piece of business every week for 54 weeks. And that unfortunately slowed down because my mother got sick and so I had to scale back a little bit in terms of being able to see clients and my availability. But um, you know, then she passed and like I said, I needed time. I just needed time and I was able to do that. And so really picking back up that momentum of making sure that I submit a piece of business every week. It's really about focusing and honing in, right? Who was I supposed to talk to? Was I able to talk to them? No, let's follow up with that person. Have I done an annual review? People really don't, they really, really don't do it. I mean, we talk about it, but people making that their actual business practice as a part of, their strategy with their clients, they don't, maybe because they're afraid that there's really nothing that's going to come of it. But even if not, right, you need to still make sure that client understands what their strategy is, why we're doing what we're doing, a refresher. Because you can ask me what I did last week. I don't remember, let alone someone tell me a year ago. I just know I haven't. I can't tell you how many of my clients are like, you got me in something. I don't remember the company. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Hold on. I need you to know the company, right? If I haven't talked to that person's beneficiary, if it's not like, let's say a spouse or something, maybe it's an older child. I need to talk with that older child. Again, not because I'm looking at it as a sale, but I'm looking at it as, this person doesn't know who I am. So what if your mom passes away? I don't need them to start trying to scramble and look for papers to see if you have a policy. I want them to say, you know what? I talked to Roxanne, or Roxanne's my servicing agent. Let me call her. And I want to be able to help connect that. So there's these different things that you can do that will always generate some movement in your business. You just have to actively do it. Now, I will say I'm also not talking from a place where I did this both. I did this with my 9 to 5, working 5 to 5 a.m. sometimes, and I'm laughing, but I really did that, right? Did that while I was finishing my last year of my master's with my son and daughter being like probably 2 and 4 at the time, or maybe 3 and 6. They were little, they were itty bitty. So I'm definitely talking from a place where I did it both ways. But it's again, it's just you adapt to what the availability is. So when I was doing it part-time, still did those things, but on a part-time level. Now that I run my business and practice full-time, I run that at a full-time capacity. So it's these little tools that I was able to do. And so, yes, it was kind of birthed out of a challenge, but when I looked at it deeper, when I wasn't doing that, that means there was somebody that wasn't getting set up properly for retirement. That means there was somebody out there who was, not understanding tax diversification in different ways. There's somebody out there that just doesn't have basic coverage to cover the mortgage. Not mortgage insurance to cover like a roof falling, but I mean like the actual financial piece of being able to pay off a mortgage. I can't, if you've ever paid off a mortgage in a lump sum with a life insurance policy, it is like the most liberating thing. Now I know other people got different opinions on it, but it is very freeing. I'll leave it at that. So yeah, so that's where some of the strategies.
That is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. So earlier you mentioned that you are you're a Jesus girl. That's just what it is. You're a Jesus girl, right?
All day, every
And
day.
so not only like all of this, you also love the Lord and you bring that to your clients as well. And you're not shy about it. And I appreciate that about you. What's one thing that you want your kids to remember you by?
Gosh, that's a good question. Well, one that I do love Jesus and that I love his people because that's what God calls us to do for sure. And so that I want them to know. I want them to know that I love them, right? That all of this, while my desire is to help others, is also to make sure that my family is taken care of, right? Again, not just financially, but with the principles and the values of what it is to be a good person, what it is to be a giving person, what it is to be a loving person, a kind person, but a person that don't take no mess, right? Like Nancy Medina, my mother, may she rest in peace. She didn't play no games. Okay? Like she didn't play no games, right? And so I very much adapt that in my life, Like I always hear the pray with me, don't play with me, right? Which I find funny, right? Because, still gotta be okay, right? But I want my children to embody that. I want them to love each other, right? And know that I love them and just really run at 100% capacity at whatever they want to do, right? That I want them to know that their mom was a hard worker, but I did it because I wanted them to have a good life. And, if I pass away and those are the things I leave with them, that'll be like the ultimate peace for me. And I feel that that's why my mom had peace. When she got her diagnosis, she was very much at peace with it because she also loved the Lord, but she knows that she instilled things in me and my sister that you can't buy. Like even though she had this financial piece that was really helpful, there were these things that were just embedded in who me and my sister are. That was my mother. And so if I can do that for my children and my husband too, right? Like I love him. We run businesses together, separate from what I do in financial services. And so I want him to know that I'm his biggest fan and his number one supporter and that I love him and I love them. And yeah, that's a deep question, Connie. Good grief, right? Dang, I'm only 41. Good grief.
Oh, I want to know. Like, I want to know. Like,
Yeah.
that that's what makes you you. That's why you work the way you do. That's why you love the way you do. Like that's what drives you. I am clear that that's what drives you. So thank you for taking that so deep and answering that question.
Oh, you're welcome. I was going down
Get
that hall. I was
deeper.
like,
I could get deeper. I could get real deep.
no,
I know.
clearly.
That's just right here. We just right here. We're just right
No.
here. All right. So last question. Maybe not. Okay, not the last question. All right.
Right. We'll
Okay.
see.
One more question. Um, what is your favorite Christian song?
Oh, oh, that's a good one.
What's your
Oh,
favorite Jesus song? What's your favorite song that gets you out of your space, that motivates you and shifts your atmosphere for yourself, that has gotten you through what? Because I can talk Jesus girl, Jesus girl, like, let's go. Like, what is the
yeah.
song that has gotten you through? Because
Oh,
you've been,
I'm already starting to choke up thinking about it because that's a good question. There's like not just one. There's one. So I go to New Life Covenant in Humboldt Park, and we have an amazing worship team, free worship, and there's this song, and it's called My Soul Sings. And there's a part where it says, "And on that day when we're face to face, I just want to say." Hallelujah. Glory, glory. Like it is just so powerful because I think about that moment. I think when you ask those questions and you look back at your life, you're like, what did I accomplish? What did I do? And I feel like I've been in different spaces in my life, and I pray that I've been a blessing to other people. I've been a piece of joy to other people. And so when I hear that song, that really gets to me. Um, I Firm Foundation is another one, right? He's the rock on which I stand. When everything around me shaking, like that was like on heavy rotation when my mom was sick. Like I've been very blessed that, well, I've ha had struggles in my life, There wasn't anything that really shook my foundation in the way my mom getting sick. Because you look at this person like Superwoman, Wonder Woman doesn't die. Like, what are you talking about? Again, in the grand scheme of life, I know, but we always would joke that we were going to be in a nursing home together because she was 16 when she had me. So she wasn't that much older, right? And so that song for me was really like just, I needed him. I needed him. And he showed up for me, right? And showing up for me doesn't mean that I got the outcome that I wanted, right? It was the fact that I was able to still stand here and talk to you today and not wither and waste away, right? Like, because it's very easy to go into that space. And I'm not going to say there wasn't times that I didn't, but having that foundation. So when I hear that song, it's just like, you are my rock, you know, you are here for me. And so those two, and even in my business, yo, if you've ever ran a business, now listen, when you do it full time, okay? Like it's different when it's part time. Yes, you're building so that you can, have an exit strategy, but you got that, that first and 15 check coming in, right? So everything is extra the same way. But when now this has become your main gig, and anybody that start a business, you've either had to invest money into it, you don't see a return. You have to have some foundation to stand on. And it can't just be yourself. For me, I needed something more than me, right? I needed something more. And God was my more, And again, I know people have their faith and people have their beliefs. I don't knock nobody, right? For me, this is what I needed. And so when people ask my advice or my feedback or my counsel, that's what I'm going to give you because that's what I had. You know what I mean? Like, and that's all I can do. So, man, yeah, those songs, I mean, there's so many, like, whew, I'd be back here in my office doing my admin, just singing away, just like singing all my songs, the stories I will tell. Like, it's crazy. So yeah, I mean, those definitely are ones that just come to me because we're all gonna meet them one day, and I've done things in my life. We all done things in our life. But at
yeah,
that moment when I see my mother and I see my nephew again, I want them to be like, you're home, and you did exactly what God wanted you to do, which is be a servant leader to others. And I hope I embody that. I pray that I embody that to people and they feel at peace with me in any capacity, in any capacity.
absolutely. And you do embody that. I see your fruits.
Thank you.
those are the fruits that are coming off your tree. I think it's not our job to judge, but you can taste the fruit and see if it's sour. You can taste the fruit and know if it's rotten. You can see if there's fruit or no fruit, right? I mean, you could be a tree, but it's like
Mhm.
fruitless, right? So I see the fruit absolutely. So thank you so much for sharing that. That is so beautiful. I love it. I'm gonna ask that to everybody. What is that song that gets you through? What's your Jesus song? So yes, absolutely. Because we gonna have to do another podcast with and call it testimony podcast because we're gonna have to talk about how God has done so much for us. Like, okay,
My gosh. Every woman you've interviewed, like there was something.
testimonies.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
some testimony. So yeah, look at we're already talking about the other one before we finish this one. That's how it all works out, right? So
yes, absolutely, absolutely. So yes, so Roxanne, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for just being an example of what it looks like the reality and the real. And this is it. This is what it looks like. Just being able to manage your business, being consistent, being a mother, being a wife, being a sister, being a daughter. Thank you so much for bringing that to your ministry, which is really helping families create that financial stability and answering the questions of the unknown, right? And educating them as to what's possible. Not trying to convince them, but educating them. I'm very clear that that's what it is that you do. So thank you for doing that. Now, how do we get in touch with you and who do you want to get in touch with?
yeah, so get in touch with me. You can find me on social media. I am the Smiling Entrepreneur on TikTok. I'm also rpad118 on Instagram, and you can find me with my name, Roxanne Medina Padilla, on Facebook. You can also go to my website. It is rpfinancialfreedom.com. So there lists all of the services and strategies and goal settings that we do with clients, as well as a way to connect and book with me. So if you're hearing this and it's triggering something in your heart, to just have the conversation to get information for yourself. And that's what I tell people. It's not cookie cutter. I can't just give you a sheet, right? Because you, Connie, and I, while we are soul sisters, sisters in Christ, we're still different. We have different needs, different goals, different situations. And so I can't give you a cookie cutter answer. I'll never give you a cookie cutter answer. If you're talking to someone giving you a cookie cutter answer, stop. Come talk to me, right? And so, connect with me on social media. I share a lot of education there. I share a lot of my babies, my husband, because like I said, I'm his number one fan. And my niece who I love dearly, and my soon-to-be nephew who will be here in January. So super excited about that. And so, yeah, if feel free to reach me. It has all my contact information on my social media and also on my website.
Thank you so much. But before we go, what's one last piece of advice that you would give someone that's on the fence about asking questions or getting a life policy?
Yeah,
What's one piece of advice?
yeah.
One piece.
Yeah, I guess the one piece of advice I would say is if you were to go tomorrow, do you feel like you've set everything in place? I mean, that's at the end of the day, some of us, and I say this in like a joking way, but not joking. Some of us have the privilege, like my mother did, to know it was going to happen. She didn't know the day, but she knew. She knew she had some amount of time to plan, get things in order, have the conversations. And some people get a call in the middle of the night because someone had a cardiac arrest or a car accident or something traumatic. I know in my city, unfortunately, that's what we're known for, but violence, right? I mean, just all these unknowns, right? And so that's the question is like if that's your scenario, right? Do you feel like your family would be equipped to handle that life after you, right? And so if the answer is no, then that means you need a conversation starter. That's it, right? Um, also on the flip side of that, right? Because we're talking a lot about one piece of what this strategy does, you know, like if you were to lose your job today, are you financially set to live the rest of your life out, right? Because these strategies, again, do so much more than just risk management. We're in the wealth accumulation business. We're in the let's forget about Uncle Sam business. You know what I mean? We're in this business of so many things. So that was a long answer to the one question you asked, but that's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Roxanne. I appreciate you.
I
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Righty, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you were a former student of Roxanne, I want to see you say that in the chat. And if you have met Roxanne or she has helped you with anything, put it inside the comments in the chats. Put it in there. Let me know. Is this true? Is this true? It is, but you know, make sure you show her some love. I appreciate you so much, Roxanne. Everybody, Roxanne Padilla, thank you.
Bye bye. Love you. Love you, Connie.
Love you.